Welcome to reading. I'm going to try this live also today just to see if it goes well. And I'm trying a few more tricks today, but I ran into some more technical difficulties, but we'll move past that. I was having trouble with Benchmark this morning online, so once I logged into Clever, it just kept on spinning and spinning and spinning. So it's okay. I took a picture of my actual book that I have, and I can annotate with you and show you what to do for today's lesson that way. Okay? So I apologize. Oh, see? I already have technical difficulties again. Goodness. Okay. So today for reading, what we're going to be doing is a new text called Road to Revolution. And Road to Revolution is an informational text. So yesterday and last week as well, we were reading about a journal entry basically from a soldier. And so with that, we got to hear a narrative basically about the American Revolution. So now we're going to be reading an informational piece about the same war. And so we're going to be able to, after this, down the road, like the end of the week into next week, start comparing the two texts. So don't forget completely about what you read about yesterday and last week. This is going to build on our knowledge. All right, so let me get situated here. So, okay. Our objectives for today are we're going to be determining the main idea of each page in this text. And so I'm going to model for you and work with you with the first page, and then you're going to continue with the rest of the text. There's only 4 pages, so I'm going to be doing the first one with you today. All right, so let's get started. I have my picture ready on my tablet so that we can annotate together. I'm going to read part of this out loud so that you can hear my thinking and model my thinking, and then I'm going to model for you how I'm going to take some notes in the margin, and then you guys will do the same with the rest of the text. All right, so it's called Road to Revolution, and it's on page 6, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's written by Susan Buckley, and it says, for 150 years, Great Britain's 13 American colonies had time to grow and change. More than 3,000 miles of ocean separated those colonies from the mother country. So I'm going to just pause for a second and make sure I know what they're talking about when they say mother country, because I noticed that it's in quotation marks. So mother country would be where they're coming from. So at this point in history, they're coming from England. By the mid-1700s, the colonists still thought of themselves as British citizens. So just so you know, British and England and Great Britain, those are all pretty much synonyms for the same place. They're all England. Okay, so when they talk about British people or British soldiers, they're talking about the people from England. And so what they're saying in that sentence is that at that point, the colonists, the people who were here in what we now call United States, they were still considering themselves as British citizens, just living in a different land. All right, but they also considered themselves as Virginians and New Yorkers, which we know now, those are states in our country now, right? So not only were they considered British people, they were also associating themselves with the state or the area that they were living in as well. Pennsylvanians and Georgians, all part of their colonial identity. They also thought of themselves as Americans. So they have a lot of titles, it sounds like, a lot of things that they're considering themselves as. Okay. Next paragraph says, mostly Britain had left the colonies during those years. So Britain had left the colonies during those years. While the colonists saw themselves as Americans, the British saw them as an economic resource. I'm going to underline that. Economic resource. If I think about the word economic, that always has to do with money. So the British people are seeing the people here in what we call the United States now as an economic resource. So that means that they're looking at the people in this country as a way to get money. Okay, but they're still at this point, they haven't gone to war yet. What we're reading about, they haven't gone to war yet, so they're still under the ruling of the King of England. The colonists' duty was to supply resources such as sugar and tobacco to Britain and to buy British goods. So they wanted them to be buying things that were from Britain. Otherwise, the colonists mainly governed themselves. So if I think about what this page is talking about, I'm getting an understanding of who the colonists were, where they came from, how they associate themselves or what they associate themselves as. And so when I kind of think about that, and if I need to reread it, I definitely can reread it, but I think about putting all that together in a single sentence to summarize. So let me think. It's mostly about the people who are here, so the colonists is what we're going to call them, and how they associated themselves as a few names. They're British, they're colonists, they're also considered New Yorkers, Pennsylvanians, Georgians, and Americans, all of these names. And then that second paragraph really was talking about how Britain saw them as this economic resource and their responsibilities to provide certain things such as sugar and tobacco, but also to buy the British goods. So really so that they could profit the most. All right, so let me go ahead and think about how I want to write this. I'll say that the colonists considered themselves as both, I'm going to underline the part I'm thinking about, British citizens and I want to say, I'm going to underline it, the Virginians and New Yorkers, Pennsylvanians and Georgians. I'm going to just do the beginning part, Virginians and Americans. I'm just going to list it as that. I'm going to do this in two sentences because I feel like I need to also talk about that second paragraph. So I'm going to say, however, the British thought of them as an economic resource. I'm going to underline that piece too. Oh, I already did that. So I know that's a lot, and I know that when you guys actually write it in your books, it's going to show up smaller. I had to write a bit bigger because I'm using the tablet. And I wanted to use two sentences. If you have a way to write that in one, go for it. Your main idea does not have to be exactly like mine. This is just how I kind of formalized my thought about what I had just read. And so you're going to be doing that for each page. It's a great way to make sure that you understand what you're reading, especially with a complex text like this. This is a pretty challenging text to understand with some of the vocabulary and things. So I would suggest using whack-a-word as you go. If you have a word that you don't understand, try to figure out what it means using context clues or apposition, or just if you can't figure it out using any of those strategies, then you can go ahead and just look it up digitally so that way you have an understanding of the word. And then please go ahead and write in your margins what the main idea of each page is. For me to see how you're doing, I would really like it if you went into Google Classroom, go up to the assignments tabs and find today's document where you will just type out what sentence you wrote for each of the pages. So there will be 4 boxes that I just want to see what you wrote in your book. So you're just going to type out your sentence that you wrote for each page. Okay, so something simple as that is what I'm hoping for. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap up. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. I hope that this makes sense. I know that this is a complex text, like I mentioned already, And so just try your best to understand it. I know that I had to read it several times, at least 2, maybe even 3 times, to make sure that I understood what was happening. Okay, so make sure you do that as well. It's a great skill. It's something that we need to get better at anyways. Okay, so have a great rest of your day, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys.